it's also going to be a long time until we see another E3 because unfortunately E3 2022 has been officially canceled. Part
Sigh.
of me, part of me, the sigh,
Yeah, just sigh.
not even sadness.
Just all of it.
I guess for me, like E3, it seems like was canceled in January because that's when I first heard about they were not doing a physical show. They were gonna try to make it a digital show. And when I saw that, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not happening this year." Like, like last year showed me that you really can't do that
Mm.
because the summer of gaming was trying to do that. Like everything is under this umbrella, and it just turned into people just releasing their, announcements when they wanted to at a certain point.
Mhm.
E3
Yeah.
was always that like umbrella,
Yeah.
and it feels like that's gone, and it feels like internet killed E3.
I maybe not internet, but more like COVID killed E3 because as soon as in person live event like E3 was impossible to do or
Yeah,
not.
but in person is not that's not really a factor anymore though, because like you look at sporting events, they're packed. Like you
Mhm.
look at I just went to a concert, packed. Like COVID, unfortunately, is not not unfortunately, but COVID is no longer a factor in terms of big events happening.
Oh, I meant it in terms of, like, when COVID was first starting to happen, and then I feel like
Oh,
when
okay,
that
okay,
started
I got
happening,
you.
E3 was already on the downhill,
Yeah.
and then COVID kind of accelerated that death.
It was yeah, it was
Its
it
own
was
death.
it was in a weakened state, and then
Yes.
COVID
There we
struck the
go.
final blow.
Yeah, and they were like, "Okay, well, we're not even gonna try anymore."
COVID was the straw that broke the camel's
Yeah.
back, for lack of a better
Yes,
term. Yes, there was.
exactly.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah,
Which
it.
is so unfortunate because I feel like exactly what you said, Thomas, like, Summer of Games last year was disorganized for lack of a better word, and it didn't feel like E3 because it wasn't E3. It wasn't the big 3 Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox like in the good old days coming together and like releasing the best content they had. It was more like, all right, we're going to release some things here, but we don't have to. This isn't like the big press conference that it used to be. So we'll just save some for later and give you like a little bit of this. And then maybe we'll plan our own conference sometime. Like it didn't feel magical like it used to be. And I feel like we're not going to get that anymore unless someone else steps up to the plate, which might be the case because there's already in talks. I know Jeff Keighley specifically, he already does at the end of the year the Game Awards, which is a quasi E3, quasi game award show. Like it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. And I feel like he in particular, because he used to actually be a part of E3 and he eventually quit and then it eventually went to shit.
Right.
But I feel
Yeah.
like he in particular might get together the summer of gaming or come up with something of his own and be the force to get everyone together and have a great E3 experience again.
The Game Awards won't be a true awards show until Troy Baker is slapped by Kojima in the face
Oh
live on
god.
TV. That's when it'll be a true awards show. But
It'll be
I do
they might do it. They might do
they
it.
might
We'll see.
hey, they need the ratings, but I agree with I agree with you. I do think that he like Jeff Keighley, like whatever that organization is, that's the best bet. But I don't know. I look at the ESA, which if anybody doesn't know, that's who, does E3. Also, that's the ESRB and everything. They kind of seem like the UN. They've always kind of seemed like the UN in that, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, or like they're all like it's not like the ESA controls them, but they were all like kind of like the ESA is kind of like the thing that brings them all together. It
Mhm.
felt like. And it's looking more like the UN of today, where it's like, yeah, it's brought together, but not everybody has to listen. Not everybody
Yeah.
has to go on the same accord. And that's what it kind of seems like. We saw that when PlayStation said we're not doing it anymore. Like that was the first I feel like that was the first big crack.
Well, Nintendo did it first, right?
I think Nintendo still had the directs during E3 though.
Right.
I think PlayStation was the first one to say we're not at E3.
Hmm.
And I feel like that was the big crack. And then I think COVID was the second big crack. And I think Jeff Keighley's kind of like rise as seemingly next up to try to attempt to do something, I feel like is the third big crack. And so I don't anticipate there being a E3 2023 or a 2024. I feel like it's done. Unless they just get like let Jeff Keighley run E3. I feel like that's an
Yeah.
option too. There's not kill it, but just kind of rebrand it. You know, I think that's an option too, but I think it's gonna be dead.
Now I think that there's still like IGN is still planning to do Summer of Gaming, if I'm not mistaken, in its place. So we're gonna have that, but it's not particular. Like I said, last year's Summer of Gaming was very disorganized, I feel like, and it didn't feel like E3. It was just a whole bunch of people releasing things whenever they wanted. And yeah, it wasn't exciting. And I guess there's only so much excitement a digital event can create in compared to a real
See,
life person.
I disagree because one of the best digital events I've ever experienced was the first DC Fandom. I don't know if y'all like did
I
that.
haven't seen it.
They really did run a good show. Like it was hours upon hours of just newly released stuff. Interviews with the creators, interviews with the stars of the movies and the stuff coming out. They even had something for Gotham Knights. You know, like it's like there are ways to do it. The problem is DC Fandom is run by Warner Brothers. So everything is under this umbrella.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with doing a Summer of Gaming or whatever Jeff Keighley's thing is called, like he has to negotiate these things with a lot, like besides just the main console companies, all the publishers and developers. Like that's seems like an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
That's not asked about any other, unless I mean maybe gaming could do something like how the Academy, you know, like the Academy of Motion Picture and Arts, like they have their own thing. Like
But what do you
everything
mean?
needs to be like with the Academy, like with the Oscars and everything. Like they're Oscar members who like, you know, it's like an actual like kind of
Oh,
organization.
I see.
The
I
Game
see.
Awards is not that. Like it's just
Mhm.
not that at all. Like
It's just Jeff Keighley. Yeah.
it's just Jeff Keighley. I don't know who votes on him. I
He has a
assume the
team behind him,
media.
though.
I assume it's the media who votes on those things.
Mhm.
Kind of
Yeah,
like a sports award.
They basically reach out to a bunch of prominent outlets and ask them to vote on things.
Right. That's not how like the Academy or the Grammys do things. Like the Grammys have actual members who are like in this case would be developers, probably
Yeah.
everybody who's associated with making video games from voice actors to, you know, effects people, like everybody, like not everybody, but there'll be specific people who are asked to be part of membership.
That
I feel
actually
like
exists
something
already.
like that would happen. What's it called?
It's called the Dice Awards.
Oh, right.
Dice
Right.
is run,
Right.
Yeah. Dice is run by an industry
That's true. You're right. I forgot about that.
organization called the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, and you have to be a paying member, or you have to be an employee of an organization that is an organization member of the AIAS.
Right.
And the Dice Awards take place in Las Vegas every year. I think Las Vegas, but they're a kind of insular industry only event. I mean, like the Grammys and the Oscars and all this kind of stuff is relevant to a broad audience because it's celebrating an industry that is relevant to a broad audience in a very public facing way.
I think gaming has gotten to that place. Like
yeah,
it's
definitely.
I feel like it's just as big as those two industries.
If
It
not
definitely
bigger.
generates. I think it generates more money than both of those industries. So it's like I feel like now's the time for something like Dice to be more prevalent.
Mhm.
You know,
But just speaking for someone who watches the Dice Awards, I'm not really like the Dice Awards is never really exciting to me per se.
I forgot about him. I totally forgot about it until Ben brought it up.
Yeah.
It's like they're like the Oscars in that
Yes.
it's just the awards.
Exactly.
It's just the
Yeah.
awards. There's no reveals, there's no trailers, there's no fun shit. Uh, so it's a lot less interesting.
Mhm.
And as much as we say that this stuff matters to a broad audience, it's different watching movie stars get their awards
Versus
versus
developers who you
flubby
never
game
see.
developers that you've
Right.
never seen before that don't appear in
That's
their
true.
games.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
true.
so it is a difference in kind, I think,
Yeah.
which is
That's fair.
why
There's
which is
not a
why
lot of
Dice
star
does
power.
not
Yeah.
get
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
why Dice does not get that kind of viewership, which is why you have to concoct something like the Game Awards that is this, advertiser heavy spectacle. It's
Mhm.
as much spectacle as it is a award show, if not more spectacle than award
Right.
show. And
To
it
me,
has
I
to be
why
in
come for
order
the
to draw
spectacle
eyes.
personally.
Yeah, me too.
why wouldn't you just like combine the two then? Like to me, that like they're both kind of doing a disservice to each other.
In terms of Dice Awards?
Because the Game Awards, if there's nothing else, it gets eyes on. It gets eyes,
Mhm.
Yeah,
while
it
the
does.
Dice Award seems more substantial.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Um,
But I think you risk undermining the Dice Awards by making it a advertiser driven
Right.
mhm.
ad show, essentially, like which the Game Awards is. We love the ads, but game trailers are ads.
Mhm.
Um, so to make Dice into an ad show undermines the awards aspect of it, and to make the Game Awards more legitimate undermines the ad show and the
Mhm.
spectacle. So I don't think you can effectively marry them without losing some important piece of either one of them. But back to E3 real quick.
Mhm.
I'm not convinced that E3 is gonna completely die and go away. I think it is going to revert back to its prior state as a industry
Industry
trade
only?
show. Yeah,
Hmm.
as an industry trade show. It is going to become less and less relevant as a public facing place to announce your upcoming slate of games, essentially. Which is like that's the thing that we all love about E3.
Exactly.
It's the hour-long press conferences where we get a glimpse of what's coming down the pike for all of our favorite publishers.
Mhm.
E3 itself is a zoo of demos and sweaty nerds bumping into each other. It's fun in a sense, but it's way less fun than the press conferences are.
Right.
It's also less practical, right? Because a lot. I mean, when you're talking about it being an industry trade show, a lot of times it's a lot of meet and greets with developers. It's like that's what primarily it's used for
It's
like like for
Right.
professionals.
Yeah, well,
Ne-
it's become a lot less viable as a trade show the more it has become a public facing show
Right.
because it becomes more and more of a zoo,
Right.
and
right.
because you have less chance meetings between developers and meetings in meeting rooms where the beginnings of deals are concocted, that kind of stuff. Like that's what E3 has always been for, and it continues to be. I mean, plenty. I know of plenty of people who take regular meetings at E3 still.
Mhm.
It's the time where people from all over the world come to a centralized location and talk. So you get back in touch with lots of people that you haven't seen in a long time. People from other gaming scenes and other um, areas of the country, especially, but also of the world. It's a gathering moment for the industry and a great networking moment, a great business development moment, and a great moment to spotlight your games for consideration by developers and publishers and the press, because that was always like
Right.
the key distinguishing factor between E3 and something like, I don't know, GDC. GDC is not
Mhm.
exactly a great corollary because it exists primarily for developers. It's developers talking to developers, whereas E3 was always developers talking to the press.
Mhm. Which I would totally be down for. If of course my dreams of going to E3 are pretty much all in blown to the wind. Probably never gonna happen. But I think it would definitely be better for the show to revert to what you're talking about, Ben, which is a trade show where, developers can get together. They can still have their press conferences and all of that, and we still, get that exciting content. But it's not a deal breaker for, all these sweaty nerds like me to go to the show and, play game demos and do all of that. Because I mean, I would be perfectly fine if I stayed at home, it still happens, and then we still do get to, still televise the press conference, but just have the industry people there. That's fine. As long as like I get the excitement of E3, which is all the game trailers, all the press conferences. As long as that still happens, I would be fine. But right now it seems like it's just dead and none of that is going to happen. And I'm skeptical for it to even revert back to, the industry only kind of deal just because of how easy it was to fall apart.
Yeah, and also it was made in a time where like what you're saying, Ben, of like people meeting each other, like having these meetings, that was like a very viable tool. That was a world before,
Internet.
setting up like a private meeting that is only accessible through password, where you can have specific industry people in just a Zoom meeting. It's like it to me, like as we get further down the line, the need for it just becomes less and less so, where it's like, why are we wasting this money?
There's always going to be a need because you can't discount the value of serendipity, of seeing someone you haven't seen in a long time. Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, great. I work for X company now. Oh, really? I'm with Y company. Oh, crazy. I didn't know that. What are you guys working on? Blah 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 blah. I strike up a conversation. Let's pick this back up in 2 weeks, and I'll get my boss on the line, and we'll talk. And then this is how business deals are made, right?
Mhm.
Like this shit happens, and it only a large part of it happens because of serendipity, because of the right people in the right place at the right time.
And Ben, you could probably even talk about like I doubt you guys even do as a developer yourself or working for gaming companies. I doubt it. It's pretty hard probably to do like game demos over Zoom over the internet, right? That
Oh
seems
yeah,
like
yeah.
something you would need to do like in person as well.
Yeah. It is very difficult to demo anything when you're not in person. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
for sure. Yeah, I think the demoing aspect of E3 is more like a press thing, but there are still plenty of like closed doors demos, that kind of stuff. And lots of developers will do demos just for potential investors and publishing partners, that kind of thing. So yeah, the in-person element of that is important. You don't want to, frankly, I don't even know how people were doing it over COVID, like distributing this stuff
Mm.
for people to play. I assume you would just have to send a whole, like, if you were doing like a PlayStation 5 game, you just have to send a dev kit and NDA at the
Ugh,
wazoo, and then have them send it back when they're done, that kind of thing. But it's a little nuts to think about.
sounds very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to play devil's advocate, since COVID happened, and we've seen a lot of these companies see like, because if you had asked them if this was possible to kind of do what you just said, like send these dev kits and everything feasibly, like they would have said no beforehand, before COVID. And COVID kind of showed that it's possible to navigate in this world remotely.
Mhm.
You're right.
Do
You're
you,
right. I don't.
and
I
with cloud streaming and
Yeah.
everything becoming more prevalent and becoming more technologically advanced, I'm saying with the future of E3, it seems like it's the purpose of it is, or at least the value of it is just less so than it was back when it was created, when it was definitely a need in the industry and definitely helped with the advancement of where video games have gone.
You're right. You're right. The value has eroded, and the value was already eroding long before COVID happened.
Right.
There was a reason. There was a reason that they started letting the public into E3, and it's because
Mm.
it was no longer viable as only a trade show.
What
They
year
made it
was that? Do you remember?
2017 or 18. It was right
17.
before
Okay.
I went for the
It
first
was
time.
that late. Wow.
Yeah, I
16.
remember it wasn't that long. Yeah, it was
16.
maybe like 3, 4
Yep.
E3s, right? With it. So yeah,
Mm.
I definitely understand what you're saying though in terms of the value of that serendipity. Like that actually, that definitely matters, especially when it comes to just making relationships in the industry.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see where this goes because I don't think anybody has a pure answer on what E3 is going to look like going forward. Because it's not like they just canceled E3 and just it's done for good. It's just they said they're focusing their energy on next year's show. So you
Okay.
have to kind of take them at their word and hopefully they have a plan. And it's not like it's some no-name organization. It's the ESA. So
Mhm.
it's not like a nothing organization. They've been through 2 very challenging years
Yeah.
of that's unprecedented. So I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because I don't think any of us want to see E3 gone, right? I don't.
No,
I really
I
don't
have to
like the
go
idea of
at
it
least
being
one
gone.
time.
Right. Like I feel like as gamers, I feel like E3. It's interesting for you, Ben, because you have the perspective of being on the development side and you love games.
Mhm.
So it's like I just as a gamer, I don't want to see E3 gone.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that front. I love the week of press conferences. It's
Yep.
fantastic, and game announcements.
Second only to Christmas.
Yeah.
I'd put it over Christmas, but that's just me.
Some years I absolutely agree. The year Spider-Man was announced, that was better than Christmas.
Well, here's
Absolutely.
the week of E3 usually coincides with my birthday week, so it's
Mm.
just
Prime
It has
time.
a different it has a different meaning for you. I
it's
feel
just
it.
great, and that's not happening. So I guess I'll just cry that week instead. It's my
Well,
only option.
look, I pray every night, and I will make sure E3 is in my prayers for 2023.
You and me both.
But I want to thank everybody for listening or watching the Dukes of Gaming podcast. Again, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast service. You can watch us on YouTube, watch us live on Twitch as well. Leave a like, a review, a comment, anything to help support the show. You can even email us at the real Dukes of Gaming at gmail.com. Have it read live on air. Please come next week. We're going to have some hot takes as well. So make sure you start your week right with the Dukes of Gaming. I bid thee farewell.